Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it now.
Good evening, everyone. Can I call this meeting in order? I'd like to welcome to you this meeting of the Planning and Licensing Committee. I am the Chair, Councillor Shakil Ahmed. Before we start, could I ask the clerk to notify the committee of any apology received and introduce the members of the committee and the officer who are in attendance? Peter.
Councillors Zahir, Davidson, Wazir, Rashid, Rush, sorry, not Rush, Winkler, Burke, O'Neill, Meir, Susan Emmett, Massey, Rana and Zaman. Officers in no particular order are Daniela Ripper, Samia Saida, Kirsty Nichols, Zainab Latif, Paul Moore, Alex Whitaker and Lorraine Adams.
Thank you. This meeting is being held via Zoom, and I should first advise members of the committee that this meeting is being streamed live on Council YouTube channel. Therefore, the members need to be aware that any inappropriate language or comments will be picked by broadcasted. Such comments should cause embarrassment to the member or the concern, also to the council. When a member has finished speaking, please can they remember to press the mute button. A member of committee services team may do this for you if you fail to do so. Please, could I ask the members either to turn off or mute their mobile phones? This meeting is open to public, but it is not a public meeting, and the following procedure will apply. I will introduce the application. The planning officer will provide an update if appropriate. The committee may question the planning officer. The objectors to the application or the representative may address the committee for maximum of 5 minutes. Objectors are asked to nominate one or more person to represent. If more than one person is addressing the committee, the 5 minutes that you have been allocated will be shared between you. The committee then question the objector or the planning officer regarding the comments. The applicant or the representative may address the committee for maximum 5 minutes. The committee then question the applicant or planning officer regarding the comments made. Any ward councillor may address the committee, and I may permit question to the ward councillor or the planning officer regarding comments made. Members are reminded that they need to be present, visible during the consideration of a planning application. If a member goes offline for a period of time during the consideration of an application, they will not be allowed to vote on the application. The committee will then discuss the application. A decision will be made. I will read out the proposal resolution before the committee. A vote then decision will be conducted by means of roll call. A member present which will be read out by the clerk. Each member will be asked if they wish to support, reject or abstain regarding the proposal that is being voted upon. Just before we start, I just remind members the chat is only for comment, for question or comment for the members only. There's no other message allowed on the chat box. We go on to the apology declaration of interest.
Chair, I have a declaration of interest on the Bombscale Crescent development. I did have a conversation with one of the objectors. Also, I'll come to this meeting with an open mind.
Thank you, Phil Burke. Councillor Rachel Massey.
Thank you, Chair. I also want to declare an interest as the assistant portfolio holder for Getting a Good Start. I come with an open mind with regards to the Middleton campus at Hopwood Hall College.
Thank you. Are you happy with that, Lorraine? Or is it Zainab Latif?
Okay, Chair. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Sorry, Chair, just while you've stopped it, you might just want to just tell the committee that Zainab Latif is doing the committee this evening from the legal point of view.
Yeah, thank you, Lorraine. Yeah, Zainab Latif from today be taking over this role as from legal team. Welcome to this meeting, Zainab Latif. Urgent items?
None, Chair.
Minute of last meeting on 18th of March. Somebody move it and second it, please.
Move it, Chair.
Second it.
Seconded, Chair.
Thank you very much. Right. First item is in on page 4 to 25. It's in Hopwood Hall Ward, Middleton, and the application number is 21/0074 full, on Hopwood Hall. Okay, who's any updates for this, Daniela?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we do have an update on the application. I will ask the planning officer to just outline what's in the update and the changes to the conditions. Thank you, Samia.
Yeah, so in terms of the update paper, one additional objection has been received regarding the location of the temporary classrooms and traffic matters which have already been addressed in the main report. The applicant has submitted amended plans with minor changes to the width of the cabins, lighting positions, and has confirmed the hard landscaping specification. In accordance with the Council's statement of community involvement, further publicity is not required on these amends as the changes are not significantly different to the original submission, and the size of the cabins has not been raised as a point of objection. Our recommendation, therefore, still remains the same as a proposal would be for a temporary period and reversible in nature. As a result of the design amends mentioned, plan references in the conditions have been updated. Condition 1 has also been amended to allow the applicant an additional 2 months to remove the classrooms, break up and remove the hard standing and reseed the site. And a further condition has been recommended requiring full details of the second phase of development prior to its commencement. That's the totality of the update.
Okay, any more question for officer? Councillor Peter Winkler.
Thank you, Chair. Just on the restoration of the site after the temporary buildings have been removed, can we be very clear? Does the site then revert back to full greenbelt status with all its previous protections and statuses intact?
It does. That greenbelt protection isn't removed as a result of this development anyway, so that will stand instead. It might be worthwhile me running over the main presentation and maybe taking questions afterwards, so as I'll go into more details in terms of the restoration of the site and the conditions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Right, Saida, you want to do introduction of the application, please?
Yeah, I'll share my screen.
Okay. Yeah, it's fine.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So, as mentioned, the application seeks full planning permission for the erection of temporary school classrooms and associated facilities, including play area, car parking, access, landscaping, and boundary treatments. The site is located to the north of Rochdale Road, shown in yellow here. This leads onto a dedicated access into the existing sports pavilion area here, associated with Hopwood Hall College. It extends to 0.37 hectares of greenfield land in the Greenbelt. Trub Brook, a minor watercourse, and a public right-of-way shown in orange on the slide, which is here, is located to the west. These are separated from the site by an embankment and a 2.3 metre security fence. The site is below the level of Rochdale Road with a hedgerow on the highway frontage. Houses are located on the opposite side of Rochdale Road, circa 230 metres away, just along here. The application is for temporary planning permission for the erection of double-stacked modular classroom units. The new building will be located in the area shown in white on this slide. A 2.4 metre fence will secure the perimeter of the entire site, A 900 square metre surfaced area for informal play is located to the southeast, shown in light grey on the slide, and parking is located to the south, shown in dark grey, and comprises 11 staff parking spaces, including 2 disabled spaces. The temporary classrooms will also have use of the existing car park at the site adjacent to the playing fields. The facility will make use of modern methods of construction in the form of modular facilities manufactured off-site for a short on-site build time to enable one intake of 120 pupils from September 2021. A contingency option for a second intake of 180 pupils in September 2022 may be required, depending on the progress of the main school site for Edgarwood Academy. Should the second phase be required, a second building will be installed of the same scale shown on this slide in the hatched lines, just here. This building will measure the same as the first phase and will be identical in layout with the exception of an additional ground floor classroom at the expense of offices, which will not be required to be replicated. Importantly, the proposals would be temporary for up to 2 years and reversible in nature so that the site could be returned to its current state. The next couple of slides will show the elevational treatment of the cabins, highlighting the size, materiality and access arrangements. Access to the ground floor will be via an entrance door, accessed by stairs and a ramp. And access to the first floor will be via internal and external staircases, including an internal lift. The site is located in the Greenbelt and therefore would comprise inappropriate development which is harmful and should not be approved except in very special circumstances. Against this context, there is a compelling needs case for new school places which is detailed in the main report from paragraphs 3 to 11. In summary, it is necessary to provide interim accommodation in Middleton whilst the permanent school site at Edgarwood Academy is being built and anticipated to open in September 2022. The temporary facility will accommodate pupils from September 2021 and the applicant has planned for a second year of temporary provision should it become clear that it would not be possible to take occupation of the permanent school site in September 2022. This significant and immediate need for the temporary classrooms carries substantial weight and comprises very special circumstances. Importantly, in terms of the site selection process, the assessment on Greenbelt does not need to consider alternative sites, albeit these have been considered by the applicant, but none considered available and suitable for the proposed development. The next few slides will show you photos of the site and surrounds and will highlight that there isn't a landscape and visual impact of the development, and these will be limited. Slides 7, 8 and 9 are photos taken from Rochdale Road and demonstrate that much of the views will be screened by built development and vegetation. Whilst the development would be visible from the properties to the east along Rochdale Road, this will be limited by intervening vegetation and the low-lying landform of the site and will be viewed in the context of the sports pavilion and associated playing pitches and infrastructure. So this is one aspect of Rochdale Road. This is the eastern aspect from Rochdale Road near to the Prow, and this is the access arrangement into Hotwood Hall College, and it shows the approximate extent of the site. This slide shows the extent of the temporary classrooms from the existing sports pavilion car park within the site. It highlights the level of vegetation surrounding the site in the wider environment to the west, north and east of the development. So the vegetation just around here, which follows the line of the Prow. This slide shows the views from the Prow to the north. The views in this direction are open in some places. This is kind of the worst case scenario, but as you can see, it will be viewed in the context of the existing sports facility. In terms of trees and ecology, Greater Manchester Ecological Unit has assessed the landscaping plans and the preliminary ecological appraisal, which is submitted with the application. They don't have any objections, but recommend conditions which have been taken forward. The ecological appraisal identified marshy grassland with occasional stands of Himalayan balsam, and the appraisal advises that with suitable protective measures and restoration of the site after use to marshy grassland, the development of the site is acceptable. Greater Manchester Ecological Unit agree with this conclusion, and they consider that ecological mitigation and enhancement measures for the loss of marshy grassland can be dealt with via suitably worded conditions, which has been taken forward. A number of water bodies are in close proximity to the application site with evidence to indicate great crested newts. The applicant has opted to go down the district level licensing route and will provide funds to enable mitigation and enhancement measures, which has been pre-agreed with Natural England and Greater Manchester Ecological Unit. Our construction environmental management plan has also been produced, which has been agreed with the Greater Manchester Ecological Unit, and it provides preventative and mitigation measures to protect Trubbrook and priority species and treat Himalayan balsam. In terms of a drainage scheme, this has been proposed for phase 1 only. It's considered appropriate and proportionate to the scale of the development. It makes use of the existing drainage infrastructure on site, limiting costs and construction impacts, and has been approved by the council's drainage engineers. In terms of highways, the Highway Authority have confirmed that the local road network and highways access is appropriate and can accommodate the proposed development, particularly as it's a temporary basis. In summary, therefore, whilst the proposed development amounts to inappropriate development within the Greenbelt, it's considered that the temporary classroom proposed to meet the anticipated shortfall of Year 7 provision from September 2021 is a very special circumstance that clearly outweighs the harm to the Greenbelt by reason of inappropriateness, harm to openness, and limited harm to the landscape and visual impacts. Importantly, this harm is temporary and reversible. Having regard to all material considerations and subject to conditions, the proposal would provide satisfactory mitigation of protected species and nature conservation interests and any disturbance to the surrounding environment during the construction, operational and restoration phase. An appropriate drainage and highway solution has also been considered, and the proposal therefore complies with the Rochdale Core Strategy, the Save Unitary Development Plan and the National Planning Policy Framework and Guidance. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll welcome Peter Rush, who has just joined in time.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay. I've got a question from John Taylor. Anybody else? And Peter, Councillor Wazir Shah. Right, John Taylor and then Wazir Shah.
Thanks very much, Chair. Thanks, Sammy, for your input. I fully understand the compelling reason why we need the accommodation. Of course, we need the classrooms for our pupils. What I don't fully understand is the compelling reason for it to be built there and not on the Greenbelt and not somewhere else. For example, on what will be the playing fields at the Edgar Wood School. So we have one building site as opposed to two.
So in terms, should I take this one, Daniela?
Yeah.
Insofar as you can, Samir, I think obviously the applicant is present to provide a bit more detail on the site selection process.
Yeah. If I just address the latter point of that question in terms of why it can't be built at the Edgar Wood Academy site, that's going to be a construction site in effect for the next 1 to 2 years. So the amount of disruption costs to the education and safety risks posed whilst you've got kids learning and development construction going on, I think would be unacceptable in that instance. So it just wouldn't work side by side.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Wazir Shah.
Thank you, Chair. Just the two questions to Officer. The first question is that, we know Hopwood at Middleton Campus is a big organization and a lot of estate and facilities. I'm sure the number they're talking about, they could have accommodated it within existing accommodation. But my question is that now they are going for a temporary accommodation, and it is a green belt. Sometimes what happens that you just have a temporary planning permission, and later on it changes into something major. As an example, oh look, we've been there for 2 years, and not necessarily school, but something else comes up, and therefore planning application. Are we sure that we are giving a temporary interim planning permission for 2 years, and that is it, and that land will be reverted back to its natural courses and natural environment?
Okay. Is that Daniela going to answer that, or? Linda?
Yes, I can answer that, Chair. So the application would be time limited in effect. So that the update note identifies that the permission will expire on the 1st of October 2023. So it will be just over 2 years. Obviously, with this application, it's going to be referred to Secretary of State for final decision. In the event members are minded to grant it. We are unsure precisely as to when the Secretary of State will come back with their decision as to whether or not this application can be determined by the council or whether or not they want to call it in. So on that basis, and obviously hearing from the applicant in terms of the restoration works that they need to undertake to restore it back to its previous condition, once the school's no longer needed, that date is the 1st of October 2023. In terms of your question, Councillor, about ensuring that this site will be returned to its Greenbelt status, it will stay as Greenbelt. And once it has been restored, and because it is being restored, it is not previously developed land, and it will not be previously developed land. So there will be no ability there for this to be ever considered to be previously developed once that restoration is undertaken.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you.
Councillor Aaron Davison.
Thank you, Chair. Again, like Councillor Taylor, I can't understand why they're picking a site so far away from the original site, which means children who want to go there from a certain estate, i.e. Langley Estate, are going to have to travel quite a distance to get to school, which may put a lot of young people off. So I'm really wondering why they're picking a site so far away. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Daniela.
Yeah, I understand your concerns, Councillor. I think we also do have a representative from our education team here to answer questions as well in that respect. So I won't pick it up now, but I will make a note of it and ask the education representative to come back on that point. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. That's it. Any objector here?
Mr. Peter Wright, I believe, is in the meeting to
Peter Wright.
Forward objections.
Thank you, Chair.
Could you introduce yourself, Peter?
Yeah, my name is Peter Wright, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm a part of and therefore represent the views almost of 1,000 members of the Facebook community, the Friends of Hotwood Woods, who love and nurture the natural surroundings of the area of this proposed development. This is not an objection or a challenge to the need for a temporary Year 7 school or facilities. It's a challenge to the proposed location, the absence of any logical assessment of alternative sites within the borough. There's no apparent site selection statement or alternative site assessment report that I can see on any of the documentation that's been presented. It's quite clear to everyone else that the planning applicant that the Borley event site, i.e. the Borley car boot sale site on Hayward Hall Road, is 800 yards from the new school site to be built, securely ring fenced, tarmacked and highly accessible to public transport, and therefore a much more applicable site with adequate parking, turning circles, and could have its own site supply. The site for the existing planning application is classified form as being within the Greenbelt, and there is such afforded development protection. The report says that any harm caused to the Greenbelt is outweighed by the immediate need for UCS 7 school places. If these are classified as special circumstances, which the whole scheme relies on for its legitimacy. The special characteristics for building on a Greenbelt site, apparently that has been quoted, are the unpredicted natural population growth and a number of housing developments in the area. The council have a duty under the NPPF to plan for a predicted demand for school places, and therefore could be accused of failing to meet that responsibility by not seeing by having unpredicted population growth and new housing, which they themselves approve the planning of. The special circumstances, therefore, are conjured up description of a failure of a duty to act, potentially. No amount of report writing or quantity of policies to be met will quantify the harm the proposed school will have on the local nature reserves that surround the area, not least the wildlife and tranquility employed by the nature-loving lovers of this area. It may have escaped everyone's notice, but the major omission from the planning application, 23 documents and the council reports to planning is the welfare, safety and well-being of the 120 year 7 and 11-year-olds in the first year who intend to start this high school life in temporary cabins in here. If anyone visits a proposed site between 8 and 9 in the morning and 3 and 5 in the afternoon, they will find the vehicle and pedestrian carnage of 150 students and staff racing to the college by car, coach, bus, motorcycle and on foot. The college road is gridlocked for an hour in the morning and in the afternoon, with coaches requiring full unrestricted access to the road. The students therefore have to run the gauntlet and risk life and limb to cross the road without any safety measures involved. Add another 120 11-year-old sites to this particular, and their car driving parents into this, and it's really an accident waiting to happen. Report to council says that highways have said it's okay, apparently. The entrance area to the sports pavilion, which is proposed, and the areas around the river and bridges are well known as Cannabis Corner to everyone who uses the area, where students congregate making in the afternoons and in mornings outside the smoking weed and in gangs without any discipline. Even the so-called student protection officers from Hotwood Hall College have admittedly given up to break up the public outrage and the public reporting, police reporting. I would not allow my 11-year-old child to walk through, around or amongst these dangerously high teenagers who constantly result in fighting with each other in the morning and in the afternoon. The local area has a fast-flowing river within 25 yards of the entrance to the site, 12 large ponds and tributaries. These surely provide a natural attraction for 11-year-olds to walk through the nature reserves on their way to and from the site using naturally discovered routes. And just finally, on a technical note, and I would ask you to listen carefully to this technical note. I have a 25-year successful consultancy career in the connection of new energy connections to developments. The land proposed is in a perimeter fenced private area with a single entrance and exit. This is classified in the utility as a single curtilage for both technical and emergency principles. Because the sports pavilion already has metered electricity, gas and water connections, utility industry are not able to provide secondary energy connections within this curtilage. This prevents any intended interconnection of supplies technically and also allows the emergency.
Could you please wrap it out in 5 minutes over?
Okay, so you need to be careful that the utility companies may not be able to serve many metered utility connections to this site. So I'll just conclude now, please, quick if you don't mind. The site is technically unable to be connected, and I would please ask the committee to reject this planning application and look seriously at the Bowley car boot sale site, which is tarmacked and preferable and near to the location of the existing proposed school. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter Wright. Anybody has a question for objector? No? Thank you very much. Is applicant here, please?
Hello,
Mr.
yes.
Robinson's here, Chair. Please.
Tom Robinson, yeah?
Speaking, yeah.
Okay, you got 5 minutes starting
Thank
now.
you. Good evening, Chair and members of the committee, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you in support of this application. Our client, the Department for Education, fully endorses the report prepared by your officers recommending approval of a temporary consent for temporary classrooms and associated development at Hotwood Hall College. As set out in the application documents and in your officers' reports, this application seeks to deliver short-term stopgap secondary school provision. As this committee is aware and has heard, a large cohort of school pupils is approaching secondary school age within Rochdale. To date, this increase in pupil numbers has been met with an existing spare school capacity and by adding capacity to existing schools. Due to the increasing numbers of pupils approaching secondary school age, the decision was made to develop a new permanent secondary school, which was approved at Bowley. In September 2021, however, approximately 120 additional Year 7 pupils will require school places, and the permanent school will not be ready to take new pupils until around a year later, in September 2022. As such, a temporary site is proposed to allow the new school to assemble together and begin to form what will become the new permanent school community. This temporary site will allow the council to meet its statutory duty to provide for the basic education need for pupils in Rochdale. A new temporary school site is proposed at Hotwood Hall College to accommodate up to 120 pupils. The site will include an option for a second year of accommodation, which will only be installed if it is required. The applicant has supplied details for the first year of accommodation only, so we would need to provide, submit further details to the council if that second year of accommodation is required. Second year of accommodation is only included as an insurance policy should there be a significant delay in delivering the new permanent school. The DfE believe this is highly unlikely. The DfE have considered a range of alternative sites. However, the sites identified were found to be either unavailable to the DfE or not suitable for the development of a temporary school due to highways, access, utilities, ecology, loss of community recreation, or residential impact. As confirmed by the officer's report, the application site benefits from good quality signal-controlled highways access with pedestrian crossing facilities. It's part of an existing education site, would offer a safe and secure site for pupils. It has access to utilities, it's removed from residential properties, can be returned to the undeveloped site once the temporary use is complete. The application site is not part of the nature reserve and will not impact on the public right-of-way running past the site. It's not practical or feasible to accommodate new pupils on, for example, existing primary or secondary school sites, as this would place significant pressure on the existing sites, impacting on the existing playgrounds or playing fields, and it would present operational issues. For example, for having 2 Year 7 cohorts on one site or having secondary school pupils on a primary school site. Other sites considered include the site known as the car boot sale site, which does not benefit from appropriate highways access, is designated as public open space and as Bowley Community Park. It's subject to land use agreements, including for the car boot sale use, and it does not benefit from utilities connections such as power, water and drainage. The application site lies within the Greenbelt and is a greenfield site. However, the temporary school will be of modular construction, so easily dismantled and removed, and the site restored. The site benefits from good existing highways and pedestrian access, is well separated from residential dwellings, has considered utilities connection from the pavilion, and lies within an existing educational site. The site will draw utilities from the nearby pavilion, reducing construction costs and impacts. Furthermore, the need for the school places and the temporary nature of the development is considered to represent very special circumstances which justify this temporary use in the Greenbelt, as set out in your officer's report. The proposed temporary site will remain in place for 1 year, with an option to extend its stay for 1 further year. Following this, the school will be dismantled, hard standing and car parking broken up, material removed from site, and the site returned to its current state by at the latest autumn 2023. The temporary school will make use of prefabricated units, which shortens the construction phase, limits construction impacts, and simplifies the restoration process. The applicant has identified and sought to limit, where possible, the impacts of this scheme. This includes reducing the site area from the original scheme proposed at the pre-app stage by 50%, limiting the height and scale of the classroom units, and submitting management plans managing ecology, environmental impact, and the impact of the construction phase. As a result, there have been no objections from statutory consultees, and your officers have recommended approval, subject to a number of conditions, which we welcome. We particularly welcome the strongly worded condition requiring the site be restored to its current state as soon as possible, and that the site use is temporary. It's absolutely the intention of the DfE that this is a temporary proposal. It's in the interest of the DfE, the Education Authority, the Trust and the pupils to vacate this site as soon as possible and move across to the permanent site. This is not, as has been suggested by some members of the public, a means to secure future development on this site via the back door. And to reiterate, the DfE welcome the proposed conditions within the report, including the condition requiring the restoration of the site and that the permission is temporary. As such, our client supports your officer's report and recommendations and respectfully asks that this application is approved. Thank you.
Thank you. We've got Peter Winkler question on John Taylor. Anyone else? On Councillor Wazir Shah, on Sean Neal. Right, Peter Winkler.
Thank you, Chair. If I could start with the proposal, as it's been mentioned by other councillors, I too am of the mind that the Bowley hard standing would be a better location close to the newly proposed school. Question 1 for the applicant is his comments that this is a site without suitable access. How can the access for a site which is in such close proximity to the new school be unsuitable when the new school will be suitable? That's one. The other question I've got is with regards to the proposed location. and the considerations for the traffic that will be converging on that area. Obviously, with a college situation, you have students making their own way there in many cases by buses and public transport and other means, because they are older students. These will be year 7 students, much younger, far more likely to be being dropped off in this sort of a location. We have obviously the college, which has got public transport and students coming in. We've got Cardinal Langley just down the road that has massive number of students coming in at that time being dropped off. We have an industrial estate on the other side with wagons and traffic coming. There's motorway accessing this point. The other issue at the top of that junction, which isn't shown on any of the plans, is the massive drainage issues that residents, I'm sure, will attest to, where this road floods dramatically every time there's any sort of rainfall. There's huge amounts of standing water, backlogs of cars. What consideration has been given to the actual real impact of bringing all these vehicles in to drop children off at this new school?
Okay. Tom Robinson.
Hi, thank you, Chair. To answer a few points there, when I mentioned access, it's not, I don't mean accessibility necessarily, but the point of access to the highway. So the Bowley site has quite a narrow access compared to this site, which has a signal controlled access from the main highway network, and a pedestrian crossing controlled by lights there as well. And then the estate road entering the site is of good standard. I'm not sure on the suitability of the road going into the car boot sale site. In terms of dropping off, yes, not all pupils will be driving. That might be the case with the college, but obviously year 7 won't be driving themselves. There is sufficient area for drop off and circulation. And the trust is also looking at providing a special bus service for this temporary period to reduce the number of vehicle movements. So bus rather than multiple cars.
Thank you. John Taylor, Councillor John Taylor.
Thanks, Chair. There are 2 points from me, really. The first one is you spoke about utilities on the Bowley site, but you haven't made any mention of the difficulty installing utilities on the Greenbelt site. And the second one, just relation to highways and traffic. At our last meeting, when we looked at the new school, the highways officer said to us, you don't want a lot of vehicle access because everyone will basically stop there and there's only limited access for parents to drop off. So I'm just wondering how that meets with your comments here about highways saying it's not appropriate.
Thank you, John. Tom Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of highways, I'd refer you to the Highways Authority's comments that they considered the junction to have sufficient capacity and for the circulation and the arrangements to be acceptable in terms of capacity, and also acknowledging that it's a temporary, the impacts would be temporary and acceptable. Sorry, on utilities, to bringing them to the proposed application site, the applicant has been in conversations with the trust, who own the remainder of the site, and have an agreement to take power and water from the pavilion, which is a short distance away. So the impact and works required to bring power, water to the site, and drainage for that matter, would be relatively low. The Bowley site, as far as I'm aware, doesn't include a power connection. There don't appear to be any street lights. Certainly drainage on a lot for residential properties along the main road there are on septic tanks. As I'm sure you can understand, the financial implications of installing a new power, water and drainage supply to a site for 1, potentially 2 years, and the distances required would be significant. The application site, in contrast, has utilities, including drainage, water and electricity, relatively readily available.
Thank you. Councillor Wazir Shah.
Thank you, Chair. My first question is that, this year 7 is a change over time, and it's a big change for our children, moving from primary school to high school, and first impression counts. And in our borough, every child matters and their education matters. And my question is that are we offering them befitting environment, educational environment, learning environments at this proposed sites compared to their sort of colleague maybe attending another school, that, you know, the quality of education that they could receive within this setting, because it's a prefabricated buildings. They are not like naturally what schools should be. So that is my first question, that are we now going to place our children in kind of disadvantage by locating them there? And you know, Harpurdown College, it caters for thousands of students. It's a very big organization in our borough, and we're talking about 150 students. I'm sure that they could offer them a better facility, a better estate, a better access, and better environment for education. I'm really concerned. My question is on the quality of education that we can deliver within this site and the children who are receiving. And are we not going to necessarily place them in any disadvantage by offering them that? Thank you, Chair.
Councillor. Tom Robinson, or do you want to, Dr.?
I can answer some of that, certainly, and you might want to ask others to fill in the gaps. In terms of prefabricated accommodation, I appreciate that there is a certain stigmatism over prefabricated accommodation that I certainly experienced when I was at school quite some time ago, and I'm sure many of you did too. The standard of the that's being proposed is a far cry from this. It's constructed off site with everything, all the electrics and all the power supply, water, heating, and so on. Created in a factory setting to a very high standard, brought in large units and dropped and then moved on site. It has the full health and safety, fire safety, ICT equipment that you'd expect in a permanent site, and indeed the modular accommodation is being used as permanent accommodation across the UK. I'd add as well, this is these supplies are from the Department for Education framework. They're not sort of built on an ad hoc basis. These are produced and are being rolled out across the country. In terms of, to answer, I think, part of your second question, I think the judgment is that far better to have this new Year 7 forming together in one place. As you said, you quite rightly say, moving to secondary school is a huge step, and it's a formative experience. So it's important to have the pupils in the same place, meeting each other from day one, rather than being spread out across different sites. The difficulty with finding somewhere to accommodate 120 Year 7 pupils to have their own classrooms, their own halls, their own dining rooms where they can mingle and form these relationships which define the rest of their education career is difficult. There aren't many sites that, or indeed any that we're aware of within the borough, that would meet that need in one place, and which is why we've come into the position we are now. We're trying to create a bespoke but temporary accommodation before they can all move across to the new site.
Thank you. Peter Winkler, the last one. This one, did you have a question for Education Department or officer?
The education officer or appropriate officer, please, Chair, rather than maybe the applicant. My question is about the number of students that we're looking to intake into this temporary temporary school, if you like. I believe was it 120 initially in the first year. We've obviously got 3 other schools, high schools within Middleton at the moment, who I'm guessing are not at full capacity in Year 7. How many of the children that we're proposing to put into this new temporary development could be accommodated within certainly those 3 schools, and possibly other schools in Heywood which would be in a similar proximity to the new development, the Edgar Wood Academy? How many of these children could we accommodate in other schools to bring them up to full capacity, and would that enable us, if we did that, to propose maybe a smaller temporary school? Obviously, you know, the new academy are wanting to bring in a full Year 7, a full capacity, but this is going to be rolling. You know, we could bring in maybe a smaller capacity into the temporary building and look to bring in the full capacity when the new building is in place. And would that open up some new opportunities for different sites?
Okay. Who's going to answer
if that makes sense, Chair.
Okay.
I can come in there,
Chair.
Chair.
Dr. Faye Davis, please.
Hello. Yes, I'm the pupil place manager in Rochdale. We're currently looking at about 60 children from Middleton that without this school would be offered places in Rochdale Township. So there would be places between 4 and 7 miles from their homes. The bus routes, I think they would need 3 buses to get to school each morning, and travel distances, travel times of over an hour. So that's with all schools, both in Middleton and Hayward, all being full. So that would leave the authority with no year 7 classes, no year 7 places at all across the borough. Last year, during COVID, we had 19 year 7 applications in year. So that's after the beginning of the school year, within COVID. So I think we're on that year, we're about half what we would normally have. So part of it is the new housing in the area, and the statistics are on that are within the last 18 months, 2 years, we've had about 300 additional houses. They have created, they have 111 new children to the area in just in Middleton. We've got another 400 houses within the next couple of years. So the number of children moving in year, we wouldn't be able to place at all. And the 60 children that would be placed out of Middleton would have very, very difficult journeys to school. This temporary school at 120 places is needed somewhere in Middleton for this year, and there is no more capacity in our existing schools. With regards to the permanent school, will have 180 children intake, and obviously being a secondary school, it has to cover the whole curriculum, which is why we negotiated with the trust of 120 places, because essentially any less than that, you can't actually balance the whole curriculum, and then the children would be disadvantaged. But with 120 intake, then they get the whole balance, the sciences, the arts, the humanities, they will get the whole spectrum. With regards to places at Hopwood Hall College, the trust, the Altus Trust were very, very keen that the school was placed at the Hopwood Hall College. They see it as a big benefit to have the college and some of those college facilities available for these children that wouldn't be available if it was at an alternative site, say the car boot. And I think for the education, for the Altus Education Trust, the Hopwood College is a brilliant site, and it was their preferred site. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Faye Davis. I think Irene Davison, do you want to comment now, or do you want to comment in
just a quick comment to Faye, please, if you don't mind, Chair.
Yeah, okay.
It's nothing serious, Faye, so don't worry. I now understand why they've chose that site. And yes, I can fully understand where you're coming from on that. But I still have genuine concerns, like it's been mentioned before. This is a well-run college, very well-run, and they do the best they can on site, but they can't do anything off-site. Young people are young people. When this is built, will it be an integral part of the college, i.e. the facilities in the college will be used by the young children, or will they be separate, completely separate from the college?
So the site will have the standard school fencing all around it, and essentially any visits off-site to the campus would be very well controlled. So it's a fully safeguarded site for those children.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, any ward councillor there? No.
I think Councillor O'Neill had a question, Chair. He had to leave the meeting. I think he's back in now.
Sean Neil.
Thanks, Chair. I had trouble with the connection. I had one in Bogatoa this afternoon, and but Rochdale seems a bit more difficult. Right. Well, what I was going to ask, it's just for information, really. The actual cabins, are they a rental contract? And what happens to them when this contract finishes? Just really to endorse that it is a temporary venture, really. Could you answer that for me?
Thank you, Councillor O'Neill. Thank you, Chair. I'm afraid that's a question I can't answer. I know they're taken off site. I have colleagues from the project team on the call, and I wonder if perhaps I could ask John Milburn from the DFE to answer that question if possible.
Good evening. Can everybody hear me just to check?
Yeah, fine, yeah.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for Chair for the opportunity to speak. Yeah, so the modular units, they go back after use. They go back, they get reconditioned, repurposed, and made good for the next kind of project.
So are they rented? Is it on a rental contract?
It is, yeah, on a hire agreement. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Thanks very much. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Right, there's no ward councillor here tonight, so is it open to discussion? No, anybody want to say anything or propose it or etc. If you know, John Taylor.
Thanks, Chair.
And then Peter Rush.
Just the nature of the meeting makes this one, obviously we approve it or we refuse it. But I personally feel it's quite difficult on this one to make an informed choice. We've spoke about Bowley, and the only reason I've picked up why it isn't suitable is because it would cost more to install amenities there. And I just find it difficult. It'd be nice if we had some kind of a choice. It's almost, do you build on the greenbelt or do you spend some more money to put some utilities in at somewhere like Bowley? I would have liked some more information about alternatives before making a choice on this one.
Okay.
Thanks, Chair.
Peter Rush. Can't hear you, Peter. Unmute yourself first.
Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry for being late into the meeting, but I've took into consideration the last part of the planning application. I'm very, very impressed with the way that this has been handled with our education department. I'm very impressed with the whys and wherefores about with regard to Otwood College that I've been part of now and in the past. I'm very impressed about the travel of the children, which has been clearly identified, that going any further out, going on to another site, etc. And I'm very, very favourable to propose this application.
Okay, thank you, Peter Rush. Before I take that, I've got Daniela wants to come in first, and then I'll go Phil Burke.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's just to respond to the question that Councillor Taylor has raised about the site selection process. The Department of Education have undertaken a site selection process in support of the application that's before us. That is something that they have undertaken as a separate process entirely to the planning process. Obviously, the planning process is to consider the application that's before us, which is on this particular site in this particular location. So whilst obviously, you know, residents have raised concerns about other sites that might be suitable, and there have been some questions answered tonight in respect of that, members are in the position where they do need to determine the application before them, which is on this college, it's Hotwood College site. But possibly it might be that the applicant can tell us a little bit more about their site selection process that they've undertaken in the background, just to give you that information and confidence in terms of making the decision.
Thanks, Danielle. That would be really helpful.
Okay, before I bring Tom Robinson on that question, I've got Phil Burke.
Yeah, I fully agree with what Councillor Rush has said. It's an excellent proposals being put forward. This is a short-term fix for a very long-term gain for the children of Middleton. It's already been confirmed that the area will be returned back to Greenbelt. This is what people are worried about. It's going to be returned back to Greenbelt after the 2 years is up. And is it really acceptable to even consider letting our children in Middleton travel on 3 buses morning and night time? Not only will it make the days longer traveling to and from school, it's completely unfair. So yes, I will fully support Peter Rush's proposal should it go forward to approve this on the recommendations of the officers.
Okay, so it's been proposed by Peter Rush and second by Phil Burke. Before I go forward, I just want to clarify with the applicant. And normally this question should have came in the beginning. Anyway, I allowed this question. Tom, you want to come in on that question?
On the site selection process, yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, the DFE considered sites from from a number of parties, from the Local Education Authority, from Located, which is a government-owned property company that seek to obtain sites for educational uses, from the trust itself at the college, looking at alternative sites within the college other than this one, and then also from members of the public. We've been aware of the various sites that have been suggested in public representations, and the one that everybody's understandably focusing in on this is the Bowley car park site. I just want to reiterate that site wasn't discounted purely on the basis of cost. The cost of developing the site is not unsubstantial in itself, but the utilities cost would be considerably higher. The utilities cost alone would be considerably higher for that Bowley car park site. But I'd also highlight the access point is not as good as the Hopwood Hall site. The Hopwood Hall site has traffic light controlled and the light controlled pedestrian crossing. The access site and the access road into the Bowley car park is quite narrow. The Bowley car boot sale site is also a community park, so any development on that site, as well as limiting the ability to run a car boot sale, would also have wider community impacts. The hard standing is used for recreation. It's not just a sort of tarmac left there. I'm sorry, I think that probably covers it. Yes, yeah, they're my points on the Bowley site. Sorry.
Right, thank you. It's been proposed by Peter Rush and it's been seconded by Phil Burke. Peter Thomas, you want to roll call the vote, please?
All right, Councillor Burke.
Approve.
Councillor Susan Emmett.
Approve.
Councillor Davidson.
Approve.
Councillor Massey.
Approve.
Councillor Mear. Councillor Mear.
Approve.
Councillor O'Neill.
Approve.
Councillor Rana.
Approve.
Councillor Rashid.
Approve.
Councillor Rush.
Sorry, approve.
Councillor Taylor.
Approve.
Councillor Wazir.
Approve.
Councillor Winkler.
Abstain, Chair.
Councillor Zahir.
Approve.
Councillor Zaman.
Approve.
Councillor Ahmed.
Abstain. So the recommendation has been approved. Thank you very much, those of you attend for this application. Obviously, it might not be in the perfect place, but it's something I think maybe I'll put temporary solution. Thank you very much. Next application. Sorry. Who called then?
Sorry, that was me saying thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much. And those of you need to leave, that's fine. And Councillor Asim Rashid, did you want to leave now? You can do if you wish to, because you might not be able to vote next one. So
Yeah, thank you.
thank you, Asim Rashid. Right, next application.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be presenting the next application.
Let me just read through it first. Okay. Right. Next application number is 20/01 506 full application is Middleton Township and ward is West Middleton. Right, Daniela, updates any?
Thank you, Chair. There are no updates on this application. Can you see the presentation screen?
Yeah, I can see the screen.
You can, okay. So the application is for a residential development in Middleton comprising 55 dwellings, along with improvements to existing open space and provision of a locally equipped area for play. You'll see that the application site is located off Bonscale Crescent, and it includes part of the former Rothay Drive, which is indicated on this drawing that you can see here. The application site itself includes the hammerhead of Rothay Drive and the previous clearance area of the dwellings that are demolished. The rest of the remainder of the site is an area of open space. This is an aerial view of the site. So for those members that know the Middleton area, this is in the heart of Langley. Bonscale Crescent is quite narrow and it's a circular crescent that returns back to this main road here. As you'll see, these are photographs of the site. So these are the trees that are within it, which line the public open space. You can see the highway here is fairly narrow. When cars are parked on the side, it becomes single vehicle width in terms of access. These are photographs of the site from inside. So again, it's another view of the trees that you could see on the previous photo. And these are the images from within the site. And you see the trees again here. These are the existing dwellings that front onto the space. And this here is the proposed site layout. So you'll see the hammerhead of the previous road is continued and new access roads are created within the site. An area of public open space is retained along with the trees along the frontage that were shown on the photographs. And the dwellings have an open aspect to the open space, so they all front onto it, which provides natural surveillance of the area. This is the landscape and proposal in more detail. So as part of this application, improvements would be made to the existing area of open space, which is obviously smaller in the scheme because more land is being released for development, but it would provide a higher quality area of public open space compared with what is there at the minute. And I've just got a couple of slides remaining which show the appearance of the dwellings. So these are some of the house types that are proposed here. And this is another slide showing some of the slightly larger and smaller units as well. Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. If you remove your screen, then I can see the people. All right, okay. Anybody has a question for the officer? No, thank you. Joanne, did you point your hand? But I think if you objected, I will bring you later on. Okay. So there's no question for the officer, no?
Can't see anyone, Chair. No.
Right, that's fine. Is objector here?
Yeah, Joan Aspinall's here, Chair.
Yeah. Welcome, Joanne, for this meeting. Can you introduce yourself? And you've got maximum 5 minutes.
Joan Aspinall, local resident.
Okay.
And have I got 5 minutes now?
Yeah, your 5 minutes starts now, yeah.
Right. I'm speaking on behalf of Save Bonscale Park Group and residents of Bonscale Crescent. We are objecting to the application for development of Bonscale Park, which is protected recreational open space, as stated in the planning report. It has not been previously developed. Rothay Drive has been previously developed, but Bonscale Park has never been developed on. There has not been a full and transparent consultation, no notice on Bonscale Park entrance. There was a notice on Rothay Drive entrance, but none on the Bonscale Park entrance to the park. This would have advised people who are walking past and going in Bonscale Park of the development and how to object. They have not had that notification. Myself and Mylene Cunningham, both local residents, have met and spoken to 100 residents on Bonsdale Crescent using safeguarding measures like masks. All signed the petition opposing development of Bonsdale Park, a protected recreational open space. The reasons were the loss of open leisure space for themselves, their children and their grandchildren, the impact on the environment, mental health and air quality. The houses, there would be proposed 55 houses with 2 vehicle spaces. This would mean 110 vehicles going up and down Bonsdale Crescent. The impact on the air quality and loss of green space means that Bonsdale Park is a valued green lung in the heart of the community, which would be lost to our local residents. Bonsdale Park has been a protected recreational open space for over 70 years. We are asking for the application to be rejected. If it's not rejected, we are asking for a delay in the planning process to allow full consultation. Having lived on Langley myself for 65 years, I know that it is a valued local leisure space which allows children and families to play and enjoy nature close to their homes. There is a nature place that children could go to, Hotwood Hall. It's been mentioned previously that it's not safe for children to be there on their own. So how would they get there? There is also Bowley, which is quite a distance away. Bonsdale Park allows children who are of a younger age to play safely in their own community with their own families nearby. Now, myself and Myling have spoken to 100 residents. The councillors say they have spoken to some people who disagreed with the objections and thought that the housing would be a good idea. But there's been no supporters of this on the council website. So I'd just like to say I would like this application to be rejected, although I do know that there are a lot of financial implications that go alongside this development. None of the finances are going to go towards the people of Bonsdale Crescent or the higher part of Langley. The financial inducements would be going to Bowley, the gymnasium and other areas. I work as a home carer visiting people's houses, and take your life in your hands going on Bonsdale Crescent at the moment. Everyone is having to either park on the pavements or go up on a pavement to miss other cars. It has been spoken about one-way system. That would be a good idea with traffic cones. But my main involvement in this is keeping Bonsdale Park for the local community. A protected, open, recreational space. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Anybody has a question? No. I think who's a highway officer here today?
Alex Whittaker, Chair.
Okay. Daniel, do you want to respond to the beginning of the? There was like a question in there. The signage or something there.
Yes, Chair. Site notice has been posted on the site as the resident has outlined. We've also sent over 100 neighbour letters to residents in the area. There's been, in response to the consultation that has been undertaken, obviously as outlined in the report, a petition with over 80 signatures has been received, and 20 individual letters of objection have been received as well. So I am satisfied that the consultation that has been undertaken has reached the people in the area that would be affected by the development. And obviously, as the resident has outlined, they've had a lot of discussions with people who have obviously had an input into the application.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I just want to bring Whitaker on here. I mean, it's not part of this planning application, but do you have some sort of plan when you're for the highway for the bond scale? Is that correct?
In terms of bond scale, there are no separate highway schemes proposed, but I think Daniela, can you touch on the condition for the parking on the lay-by areas on the Langley estate? I was aware that that's associated to this development.
It's not associated with this development, but there is a wider highway improvement scheme being undertaken, which has been undertaken by the Highway Service, relating to how the highways can be improved, which I think obviously some of the members of the committee will probably be aware of, in terms of looking to include some lay-by parking areas to relieve some of the on-street parking pressures that are prevalent in many of the areas within Langley. That includes around this wider area.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, I thought it was a condition of this development. That's my mistake. But I had from the highway side, like Daniela says, there's a lay-by parking scheme for the estate.
Okay, thank you, Whitaker. Is applicant here, please?
Yes,
yep.
Chair, got Michael Mercer and Natalie Mail to address the committee.
Okay, Michael. Natalie. Are you speaking, Michael, or Nicholas Christ?
To be honest, we was only going to answer specific questions, didn't really have a presentation.
You can do a presentation, and then if you have any questions, people.
No, we haven't prepared a presentation. We were just here to answer any technical questions on the application if they arisen.
Okay, that's fine. Anybody has a question for the applicant? No, I'm sorry, Johan, but this is for the members now. You had your say. It's the same applies to applicant now. So any member has a question for the applicant?
Can't see anybody with a hand up, Chair.
Right, that's fine. There's no question. Is there any ward councillor here for this?
I believe Councillor Susan Smith was due to attend, but she doesn't appear to be in the meeting. So.
Okay, that's fine. There's no ward councillor here to speak. It's open to discussion now. Go Aaron Davison and anybody else.
Thank you, Chair. I really have got genuine concerns on this one. I've supported as best I can as a member of this committee for Langley Estate because people who live on Langley Estate deserve good housing, a good landlord, good neighbours, but they also deserve a bit of green space. And if you go up Langley at the moment, I know I'm not, but I have got family that live up that area. It's nothing but a building site. There's hardly any green space left at all. And as Joan has said, to get to green space, a lot of young people have to travel. And that worries me. It also worries me that the fact is how protected is our green space? Because if someone can come along and put an application in on our open green space, what chance has the rest of Rochdale Borough got? So I'm sorry, I cannot support this one.
Okay. Anybody else want any comments or question or would like to say something? No? Okay, comes. Natalie, did you want to, are you, was Natalie Mail here?
Hello, sorry, I don't know if you can hear me or not. I don't have.
Who are you?
Sorry, I was the project architect for the scheme. working along with the applicant. It was just in terms of the green space. I mean, this site was identified, the site is council owned and was identified by the council as site
Chair, I'm sorry, but my comment was not made to Natalie, it was made to the committee. I don't need a reply back, thank you.
All right, that's fine. No, I think that she just wanted to address it. That's fine, because you had your said, but if anybody has a specifically question. Okay, it's open to discussion. Anybody wants to say, or there's a recommendation here as for approve, recommendation is there. So somebody, unless somebody wants to move the recommendation on, Councillor Winkler.
Sorry, Chair, just trying to turn my mic on. I think Councillor Davidson actually makes a very good point about this. When you drive through, and I do drive up and down here a lot, it's a little piece of green space in what is a massive housing area. And we've had this in all our wards at one time or another, where they can be seen as just an opportunity to bung a few houses on and see if we can get some more. But these are the sorts of spaces that are really well used by local people, and maybe from outside the area, you don't realise that. But it's the people just in that little community that will really benefit from that space. Far more as it is probably than with 55 houses. And I'm quite happy to move that we refuse this one. And if Councillor Davidson had seconded that, I think we'd have a motion against it rather than for before we move to a vote.
Oh, okay, you need a ground. What ground you want to propose or refuse?
On amenity, Chair. It's amenity for that local community.
Okay, Daniel.
Yes, I mean, I think given what Peter Winkley has said, amenity and obviously the loss of the protected open space would be the planning reason there that he's outlined.
Okay. The proposal to refuse application as proposed by, are you seconding, Anne Davison?
I am seconding that. Thank you, Chair.
So it's been proposed, refused this application by Peter Winkler and second by Anne Davison. Susan Emmett?
Yes. Is it possible to defer to the next meeting, as the objector has said, for further consultation with residents? Thank you.
Okay, that's two. Then John Taylor.
Thanks, Chair. I just wonder if we could actually have a look at the plan again. When I saw the plan on screen in the presentation, I thought there was quite a bit of green space left. But if we're going to vote, I would like to have another look at it, please.
Yes, I'll let me reshare my screen, Councillor Taylor. Okay, can you see the plan on the screen?
Yeah, I can see it, yeah.
Okay. So the area of open space is reduced, but there are also improvements proposed to the remaining area of open space. Now, just in terms of explaining the plan, you'll notice that much of the existing housing presents the rear boundaries to the open space. You can see that along this area here, along this area here, and along these areas all round. So largely, the majority of the existing development presents a rear boundary to the open space. Now, what this scheme intends to do, whilst it does reduce the open space, that's undeniable, you can see that all the frontages of the plots near the public open space, with the exception of two side elevations, actually front onto the open space, which provides it with natural surveillance. That in planning terms is a general improvement to people's perception and experience of that open space when they are in it. It does give a slight appearance of being safer and feeling safer when you're there if you know that there's people that can oversee what's happening in that public open space. One of the other improvements that is being made is a children's play area is being included as well, which you can see in this part of the plan here. But yes, I mean, in terms of the plan that you were referring to, John, there it is on the screen.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Daniel.
Okay,
That's
thank you.
super helpful.
You move the screen, Danielle. Then.
Yeah, thank you.
Right. Before, right, okay, there's a recommendation.
Councillor Massey wants to speak, Chair.
Hang on, okay. Rachel, question.
Thank you, Chair. Daniela, do we know what age the play area will be suitable for?
It's a locally equipped area for play, so I think it would be the younger children for that one. There are different scales, so there's local area for play, which is a smaller scale of park development. The next one is local, a leap in effect, which this is that's proposed here. The next ones are neighbourhood ones called NEEPs. They provide even more facilities for a greater range of children. I suspect this is the lower end of the scale in terms of the age group, so possibly 0 to 7. I'm not quite sure how they work in full details, but it'll be the smaller equipments. You won't get a multi-use games area here, for example, with you know, the big high fences around it and the ball games. That's not what's proposed here.
More like a toddler playing area type of thing then. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Samina, and then we're going to decide on which way we're going. Samina?
I don't understand, you know, the refusing this bill. We all know that there are about 7,000 people on a waiting list on RBH list. And the ward, my ward, the overcrowding, I know how people suffer. So when we are building on green spaces, it's not acceptable. And this is not a green belt, right? And it's providing a suitable children play area and green space as well. And is going to provide some suitable housing for some people who are struggling and might be looking for a house instead of an open space. So before refusing it, we really need to think about all those people who maybe are waiting for several years for a suitable accommodation. So I would like to recommend and support this bill, because I know how people are suffering when they are overcrowded, or like living in a first floor in a 1-bedroom flat with the 2 kids. The people like, and waiting for 2 years. I know a family waiting since 2014 to be moved to a better house. So please, we do consider those people who are suffering and need some decent housing. So I strongly support this housing application.
Okay, you're proposing it, that's fine. I've got Peter Roche, Faisal Rana, and Irene Davison.
Yeah, looking at the overall plan, we've still got some greenfield, not greenfield, play areas, etc. Allowed. It looks a very, very good estate, and I'm quite prepared to second that we accept this one.
Okay, so we propose and second by Samina. Before we do the votes on either proposal, I'm going to let's speak. Rana and Irene Davison going to be last. Professor Rana.
Yeah, Chair, thank you very much. I was going to second it, but Councillor Rush has done already that. But you know, that's I fully agree with the remarks made by Councillor Samina Zahir and Councillor Peter Rush, and I would like to support that as well, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, Irene Davison, did you want to comment?
Yes, Chair. I don't need my conscience pricking at all when I make a decision at planning. So I appreciate what Samina has just said, but I don't need any. To my conscience is clear. My only problem with this application, as I said, Chairman, is the fact that public protected open space does it mean nothing to anybody? If it was a smaller amount of houses on this site, then maybe I could be swayed. But 55 taking up quite a lot of space on this site, so I still cannot support it.
Okay, Peter, before we need advice on you, do we take a propose application, or do we take the refuse application votes first, or do we take as a one?
We'll take the amendment first, which was proposed by Councillor Winkler.
Okay, I'm going to take amendment vote on this. Peter Winkler, and it been proposed and second by Aaron Davidson to refuse the application. Call on Peter.
Councillor Burke.
Abstain.
Councillor Susan Emmett.
Abstain.
Councillor Davidson.
For.
Councillor Massey.
Against.
Against the recommendation.
Against the refusal.
Against the refusal, sorry, to clarify.
Yeah.
Yeah. Councillor Meir.
Against.
Councillor O'Neill.
Against the refusal.
Councillor Rona.
Against.
Councillor Rush.
Against.
Councillor Taylor.
Against.
Councillor Wazir.
Against.
Councillor Winkler.
For.
Councillor Zahir.
Against.
Councillor Zaman.
Against.
And Councillor Ahmed.
Abstain. So the proposal has been rejected. So we go on to the actual application.
Right,
Yeah,
that was
that's
proposed by Councillor Zahir and seconded by Councillor Rush. Councillor Burke.
Abstain. Abstain.
Councillor Emmett.
For.
Councillor Davidson.
Against.
Councillor Massey.
For.
Councillor Meir. Councillor Meir.
I'm the mayor.
For.
Councillor O'Neill.
Can you hear me, Peter?
Councillor O'Neill.
Where's he gone?
He must have. I think he might have lost connection.
Okay, we'll come back to him if we can. Next
Councillor.
one.
Councillor Rana.
For.
Councillor Rush.
For.
Councillor Taylor.
For.
Councillor Wazir.
For.
Councillor Winkler.
Against.
Councillor Zahir.
For.
Councillor Zaman.
For.
And Councillor Ahmed.
Abstain. Could you able to check with Sean Neal? Is he back? No.
No, it's not back yet, Chair.
Anyways, the recommendation has been approved as recommended in the report. So thank you very much those attended for this application. Okay, next move to next application, please, which is application number is 20/01529, full application, Rochdale. It's a central ward. Who's taking, Daniel, are you updating on this?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, there is an update report. Members will be aware that the published agenda pack did not include the conditions for this application. They are now included in the update report. That is the only update for the application. We'll bring the planning officer, Kirsty Nichols, in to present the item. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniela. Thank you, Chair. I'm just going to share my screen. Just bear with me.
Yeah, we can see you now.
You can see that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Can you speak up a bit, please?
Yep, certainly. Sorry. Hold on.
Thank you.
Okay, do let me know if you're having issues seeing this.
Yeah, it's fine. I can see you now.
So the application is at Riverside Phase 2, and it's for the erection of 4 buildings to provide office, a mixed-use development, office, commercial use, hotel and residential use, together with associated car parking and servicing. So what we've got here is to the background to the application. A hybrid application was approved, which included for Phase 1 of the newly constructed Phase 1 Riverside and Phase 2, which is this outline, which was approved in outline at the north of the site here. The application site in red here is Phase 2 development. To the north of the site is Yorkshire Street. To the west, Penn Street, and we have New Bailey Street that runs to the south and John Street to the east. There are some heritage assets in the vicinity of the site. As you can see, the site here is bounded in red. To the north, we have the Townhead Conservation Area, 128 Yorkshire Street, and the Townhead House, which is a Grade 2 listed building. To the west is the Town Centre Conservation Area also. So this is the layout and scale of the proposed development. To the east, we have 2 residential blocks. I'm not sure if you can see my cursor along here. These are 2 residential blocks, which are build to rent model with 242 units overall of studio and 1 and 2 beds, both one at 9 stories and the other at 10 stories. On the junction with Penn Street and New Bailey Street, we have a 146 bedroom hotel, which will stand at 7 stories. And to the north of the development, bounding Yorkshire Street, the properties fronting Yorkshire Street, we have a circa 4,000 metre square floor office, which stands at 5 stories. This is the landscaping plan for the development, which shows the courtyard development, the courtyard style development that is proposed, utilising the levels within the development in a terrace development. So what it's essentially doing is providing public open space for those within the residential blocks and also within those within the hotel and the office development. Here we have an outline of the servicing and access and parking arrangements. Servicing, the master plan has been evolved to be pedestrian friendly. So we will have a new access road off John Street, where my cursor is here, which will be for servicing only. And will be controlled through conditions in order to ensure that this is appropriately controlled. Car parking will be provided within this area in blue, decked car parking, which is part of the Phase 1 application, apart from disabled bays, which will be provided within the site. This is a cross section looking from Penn Street, which shows the junction of Penn Street, which shows the development in the context of the wider area. I'm now going to show you some CGI images, which I think shows the development within its context and its material palette. So what we've got here is we're standing on New Bailey Street looking north, and we've got the residential development on the right-hand side, the hotel on the left, and the office building you can see straight in front of you. And I think this shows the high quality style development and material palette that will be used here. This is another CGI image, which is a view looking from John Street looking south, which shows, illustrates that the 9 and 10 story introduction into the town centre will actually be embedded well within the context of the wider area. This is another CGI image looking for view from John Street looking north onto these are the residential blocks contained within the development. And this is the office development. If we can see, we're looking south down from Union Street and York Street down onto Penn Street. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but this is the office development in a CGI form here. And this is the hotel. So this is the crucial part of the development. It's the proposed corner of Penn Street and New Bailey Street. And it really shows the development within the context of the area. I'll be welcome to take any questions, but that's the end of the presentation. Thank you, Chair.
I've got Wazir Shah, Peter Roche, and anyone else? Councillor Wazir Shah. If you unmute yourself, Councillor Wazir Shah, we may hear you.
Oh, sorry, Chair. I thought I've done that. Technology again. Thank you for your presentation. One thing I would like to ask is the parking. You mentioned in your presentation through the cursor, the parking would be there. We're talking about town centre development where we are asking lots of shoppers to come in during the day to do the business and ensure that, you know, they sort of do the shopping. But we also got a night economy there, the theatre, the cinema, and the rest of it. But in town centre, with this kind of development, not offering adequate planning parking, I think it's like asking for a problem. So could you please enlighten us in a bit more detail what sort of spaces, the parking spaces you are assigning to this development, so we have an idea? Thank you.
Yes, certainly. I can take the part of the question, but I'll maybe refer to my highways colleagues as well to pick up on the other matters. The car parking will be provided within the decked car parking. It won't be a 100% available car parking for the development. However, this is a sustainable location within the town centre and will provide appropriate car parking within the decked car parking from the hybrid application. I don't know whether our highways officers want to add.
Yeah, sorry, I can come in on that. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Alex. Thank you.
Yeah, from the highways side, we have looked and considered the overall parking provision for the development, and given the sustainable location within the town centre, close to the transport interchange, we feel that it is an acceptable provision and an acceptable proposal.
Okay. Peter Rush.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's related to the parking. And we always reckon, I believe, as through the planning department, that any 2-bedroom house gets a 1 and any 3-bedroom house gets a 1.5. How does the allocation pan out? If we've got, say, X number of flats, how many car parking spaces would there be there for the X number of flats within the precinct?
Sorry, sorry.
Is that a question for highways or yourself?
Sorry, I can take the particular question about the number of spaces. So as part of the hybrid permission, the decked car park structure provides 150 spaces for phase 2. And then with the 2 disabled spaces, overall, this is 152 spaces. So 100 spaces will serve the residents and then 50 spaces for the hotel and office use, which was agreed as part of the hybrid application and was agreed with our highways department, highway service.
Just seems a little bit tight, personally.
Councillor Samina Zahir, and then I've got Councillor Rana wants to comment on that.
My question is, what kind of rent we are looking for? Is it higher end or, you know, when you say affordable, it is still high for a lot of people. So I just need.
Is that question for applicant, or is that question for the? That goes to, I think that goes
yes,
to.
Anybody can answer it.
That'll be later stage. I think you may be applicant may be able to address that question. I think the officer doesn't decide that how much the rent they're going to charge.
Correct. Yeah, I'll defer to the applicant.
Yeah, you can come that later on. Professor Rana, if you got a question for the officer, otherwise, if you got a comment to make, you can make in a later stage.
There is a question as well, because I think what Councillor Wazir has said before and Councillor Peter Rush has said before, I am too concerned about the parking as well. I think 146 bed hotel. It's good to have hotel in Rochdale. You know, it's a good thing to have. I mean, only the time will tell if we are successful or not, but I think it's a good thing to have. Just concerning with the parking itself, 146 room. Could the planning officer please tell us that would that be a dedicated parking for the hotel and the housing separately earmarked and space marked, or it will be just first come first serve basis?
as far as I'm aware, that those 150 spaces within the deck car park will be designated for the residential. So that's 100 for the residential and 50 for the hotel and office use with the 2 disabled spaces. So they will be allotted. How that will be materialised can be secured through condition. However, they will be secured. They are allotted for the phase 2 development.
Thank you. Councillor Zaman, you got a question for officer?
Yes, Chair, thank you. It's again about the parking. At the moment, we are in the lockdown. When Town Centre is open, we'll have a cinema, we'll have, other activities. At night time, people would like to, come down. I think parking is not enough. Dedicated parking, like Councillor Rana said, we need to understand that this developer, how many spaces they are providing for all these units. And it's very important to bear that in mind, because once it's all approved, it's going to be very difficult to go back and, amend our sort of things. It's important that we consider it now. And I would request highway and also the planning officers to, enlighten us more for us to be able to actually support this.
Yeah, I can come in again on the highway side. In terms of the location of the development, again, with it being close to the transport interchange and in a sustainable location, the way that parking is considered is different to sort of other residential developments outside of town centres. We don't look to secure as much dedicated parking, as it's generally accepted that car ownership levels are lower when you put residential areas within a town centre. There are other sort of retail and community facilities within walking distance that the residents of the proposed residential area can access on foot or other modes of sustainable transport. So that is why the sort of under provision is generally accepted in the town centre area.
Okay, thank you. Iron Davidson, have we got a question for officer?
It's just for clarification, really. I'm sure when we've discussed this before, that officers told us that the top level of the car park, the multi-storey car park, which now feeds the shopping centre, would be the designated area for the flats and the hotel. Is this still the same?
That is correct. So through the use of a condition, the parking allocation will be a matter of leasing and or parking permit arrangements with the residential, the hotel and the office. But yes, that you are correct, yes.
So would that mean that the top floor would be only accessible for said people in the flats and in the hotel?
As far as I'm aware, that would be part of the leasing and the permit arrangements, but that would be, I would imagine, the way that that would work.
Yeah.
Yes, correct.
Thank
yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Thank
yeah.
you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any objector here?
No objectors present, Chair.
Okay, a planning applicant, please.
Richard Pearce is the applicant to address initially, Chair.
Okay, Richard, welcome to the meeting. You've got 5 minutes when you're ready.
Okay, thank you. I hope you can hear me. Good evening, members.
Good evening.
I say, my name is Richard Purser. I'm the planning consultant on this project. Just before I say anything, can I just thank your officers for obviously their assistance in the application and the report this evening. I'm happy to answer any questions after this. There's also Mike Smith here from Generate and Erin Tilley from Curtains on Highways if you have any further questions to raise. I will make some specific comments on the report that's for you, but really what I'd like to reflect on is perhaps why we're here and why this development is coming forward, to give you a bit of context for your decision tonight. As you may remember, the council 15 years ago set out a really ambitious vision to regenerate and transform the whole eastern area of the town centre. I mean, I remember the black box council offices, the car park and the bus station, and I'm sure you all do, and how tired this whole area and space was. And to think now what the area looks like after the last 10 years, transport interchange, number on Riverside, and of course, most recently, the new retail and leisure development at Riverside. And what actually that commission did in 2017, which your officer just alluded to in some of your questions there, it actually established the principal development here on this site. And what we're now looking at is a different scale and mix and design, reflecting how things have moved on, even just in the last 3 and 4 years, and the ambition perhaps we have for Rochdale, and what that vision can be. So what this development is going to provide is new apartments, a new hotel, new opportunities for employment, all set within high quality buildings, landscape, public and private spaces. We feel that it respects the townscape, and it will link the modern streetscape that we now see in Smith Street and Riverside with the heritage of York Street. It's a development that will bridge part of the gap that exists in the town centre at the moment, which is appropriate, and it comes with significant public benefits as part of the regeneration. The employment itself could be up to 340 full-time equivalent jobs. That in itself could be worth over £8 million in annual wages to the local economy. It can bring in extra business rates to the council, perhaps around £370,000 a year. And of course, new workers, as well as the new residents and visitors to the town, brings vibrancy and vitality to the local economy. Looking at the apartments, there are a mix of studio 1 and 2 bedroom apartments. Each are now designed to have a private balcony and access to outside space, which has become more important in the last year. They're supported by a 24-hour concierge, communal facilities, and they have their own private gardens to build a community. And these are high quality homes built for rent. I think there was a question about what they'd be. They'd be set at market rents. And it's deliberately to bring into Rochdale the concept of city centre living that you see in Manchester. And it's going to be a new product into the town, and it's going to attract young professionals and target it at a higher earner. It will going to bring people back to live in the town centre, and they're going to be supporting shops, supporting businesses. The 146 bedroom hotel is actually going to be operated by Hilton under its Hampton brand. And this is going to be the first such purpose-built hotel in the town centre. It's, I believe, going to be the first such of the brand in any of the towns surrounding Manchester. And the hotel itself will attract obviously business and leisure visitors, again, increasing expenditure and activity in the town centre, you know, bringing people into the Riverside centre that's recently opened, helping the evening economy. And so combined, this whole development will set high design standards, which will hopefully shape future projects such as development of the Wheatley Centre next door and across John Street into the neighbourhood, eventually building on the vision. It's not just finishing at this development in the town centre, there's more work to be done. So what I would like to do is turn to a couple of matters out of the report. You've obviously raised quite a few questions about the parking, and I think actually your officers have already answered actually the main points. The first being that the original master plan did actually set the requirement and the amount of parking at the 150 spaces spoken of, 100 of the apartments, 50 of the hotel and offices. And quite rightly, the upper deck of the car park will be managed and be separated from the public parking to serve the scheme going forward. And that management scheme will be approved by the council through planning condition will go forward. And that was how it was envisaged back in the original hybrid application. The report also, you will see plenty of comments around how the servicing worked in there. And this has been something that we've looked carefully at with your highway officers, trying to balance the quality of the landscape public space to how service vehicles move around and the safety of people within it and how it's used. And what we've come forward with, we think, is the optimal solution of a loop road that goes around linking from John Street to Penn Street and then back onto New Bailey Street. And we believe that this will balance minimising the amount of movement through that space and conflict with pedestrians and making it a place where people want to walk and people want to dwell into, because the hotel and the offices will open out into this space. The other thing that I wanted to highlight for you, if I may, just before I finish, is the biodiversity benefits. It's only actually a 7% net gain over the site because it comes from a modest based on effectively zero. But these are important parts of these kind of schemes because it creates part of a mosaic of a wider habitat in the town centre. If you think of the landscaping around the Riverside Centre by the river, it links together all these different habitats. And what we're also now doing, if we decided to add a green roof onto the rear part of the hotel at Penn Street, because this can be seen coming downhill from Penn Street and will both be a habitat improvement and a visual improvement. So I hope I haven't gone too much over 5 minutes. That's all I was just going to say.
Question I got, Vizier Shah, anybody else? Vizier Shah, John Taylor, Councillor Vizier Shah.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Richard, for historical facts I think some of the councillors who've been around for a sort of long time, they fought for this town centre, and they wanted to improve this town centre and then bring it to 21st century standards, so the shopper can come enjoy the Rochdale town centre. The things which are coming in, I don't think you'll find anybody on this committee who will have any objection on the development, either residential or hotel. That's what we want. That will improve our town centre. That'll bring the customers. But in the process, we want to get things right. So there is no problem in like a year later or 2 years later, because we want the tenant to move in with the confidence that they will have that facility of car park. We want people to come in and stay in a hotel knowing that they will have a parking space. But what you are saying at the moment is not appropriate, because there is a shopping center and we want shoppers to come in and do the shopping and make it success. Equally, we want these tenants to come in and live and enjoy this modern facility, which is a trend at the moment, city centers, accommodation. We want that in our town center as well. But at the moment, in my mind, this is me, I'm talking, I'm not sure how we will accommodate those tenants and the people who live in hotel with appropriate car parking. Is not there. And I was a bit disappointed by the highway officers saying that, oh, it's town center development, so you don't need parking. Of course you do need parking. That is something essential. So I need specific answer on that, please. That what you're going to do, how you're going to accommodate your potential customers, both in a hotel and in a residential area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wazir Shah.
Chair, do you want me to speak?
Richard, yeah, please.
Yeah, so, well, I understand clearly what your question is, and the concern is that there isn't enough spaces potentially for the hotel people coming, or perhaps more people living in the accommodation will want to have a car. I understand that's the thought behind this. But what you see in other town centres and city centres is that, certainly for apartment schemes, there are targeting this. Parking is actually at a lot lower level than this. We're at around just below 50% provision for parking to apartments. And that is very high in my experience of these schemes in other areas. And it's because the type of people that will move into this area tend to be younger professionals. They do not necessarily want to have a car at this point, and they live in the accommodation perhaps differently than you would live if you live in a suburb. It's not the same kind of approach. And then you have the other aspect of the hotel. It is a town centre location. I mean, if you go into any major towns, if you're going on holiday anywhere, you can't normally expect to have a parking space at a hotel in a town centre location. Whilst I respect that Rochdale is not Manchester City Centre, I'm not for the moment suggesting it is nonetheless going to be a hotel in the town centre of Rochdale. It is not going to be like a motel that might be operating on a motorway junction, perhaps coming in for more travelling, perhaps business people. So more people are likely to come in by public transport and choose to do so because it's convenient to do so in a town centre location. And I suppose it's the convenience and the balance of sustainability, which is what drives both planning policy and transport policy, and why it's acceptable to go for the lower allowed parking. Notwithstanding, I understand what your concerns are and why you say it.
Thank you. Councillor John Taylor, Councillor Faisal, I want to comment, and Samina Zaid and Zaman, that's it. Councillor John Taylor.
Thanks very much, Chair. Richard, thanks ever so much for your presentation. And perhaps if I can just reiterate the comment made by Councillor Wazir, I too would love to see our town centre regenerated. And I'm sure I'd speak for all of us when we say that. I understand the concerns that have been raised around parking. You've partially answered them for me, but I wonder if there are any developments you've been involved in similar sized towns to Rochdale with similar parking to what's actually being proposed here and how they've worked out. And I do have a second question, and I'm not quite sure if it's best put to yourself, Richard, or not. Looking at the paperwork for this one, there are no 106 contributions because of the feasibility around all of it. If things don't work out the way we all hope they will, whether it's this scheme or another one, is there any financial risk to Rochdale residents? Thanks very much.
Okay. I will take the second question first and just say I'm not the right person to answer that question. I will leave that perhaps to somebody else to step in once I've come back to your first question. I have had experience of working in similar scale towns. Whether you think they're similar, I don't know. Preston, Warrington, sort of locally, and also some others further afield. Gloucester, I've worked in the past, providing hotel accommodation as well as apartment accommodation into those towns off the top of my head. All of them have similar expressed probably pressures and ideas about parking, because every town has problems of traffic coming into town centres. It's usually a balance between trying to dissuade too much car traffic coming in because of the streets are already congested, but then still wanting to have the development and regeneration and the benefits that come with it. In some towns, the answers do become a multi-storey car park, perhaps, and that there is a balance perhaps to, there are already X amount of public spaces and we just accept there's a churn of uses within those spaces. And that's true perhaps for evening economy, you know, daytime shoppers, space is often released to the evening economy. So there is that there. I can't really speak to say how well they've perhaps all turned out. I can't confess I've ever gone back to these towns and, you know, to projects and asked that kind of question to follow up. Perhaps I ought to. It's quite a good question. But I'm certainly not aware of pressures and problems rising from these, and that the developments weren't successful. And they certainly went ahead.
Okay, Councillor Rana, you got a comment or a question?
It's a question as well, Chair.
Okay.
Richard, I just, as per my information, I think with the hotels, it's every 2 single rooms must have 1 parking place, and if it's a double or any multiple after that, they should have 1 room, 1 parking space. So as per that understanding, I think this parking space is around 25, maybe short. The alternate, and you mentioned about the town center, many hotels in the town center doesn't have a parking, I understand that. But once you're doing such a big project, you have to keep the parking in mind. Was there ever any consideration given to the basement parking? Because if a multinational hotel, like you mentioned about, this coming, and if there is generally like a multinational hotel, they should consider basement parking. Was there ever any consideration given to this? Thank you.
It's an interesting question, Councillor. If you were familiar with the 2017 permission that came forward, the area which we're now in actually had a deck proposal with underground parking. And one of the changes that was made post that in about 2019, 2018, something like that, was that the viability was looked at whether you could actually put a deck car parking structure in and then put the buildings above, and it just simply wasn't going to work. And the answer was to put the additional deck onto the what was then just 2-level car park at the back of Marks and Spencer's and make it into a 3-level structure. And essentially, phase 1 provides phase 2's parking. It rather than it being in a basement, it is an upper deck. So it's basically the reverse, but it is exactly the point you make.
Yeah, just to supplement, please, just a quick one. Was it not viable because of the pricing, or was the cost, or was there any other issue?
I don't personally deal with that as the planning consultant. I'm just aware of the wider team, which is, it's a partnership with the council, with Generate, looking at how to deliver. I probably oversimplify when I just say that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rana. Councillor Samina. Samina Zaid.
Thank you, Chair. My question is the same I asked earlier. What kind of rent we are looking for these properties, please?
I don't have an answer to what the rent will be. It will be a market rent product. That's what I can tell you. Unfortunately, I'm not the right person to ask. And I suspect perhaps Mike Smith might want to step in at this point from Generate. I can't really speculate very well at what that might be. Mike?
Yeah, Richard, thank you. Yeah, good evening, everybody. If I can assist in that particular question, Richard's correct. I mean, these apartments will be market rent. Now, clearly, we are at least 2 years away from practical completion, and so at the moment, it's very difficult to be precise upon what the rental levels will be at that time. But they will be driven by normal market forces and demand at that time. If I may, as well, if I can assist councillors in terms of the parking question that was asked by Councillor Wazir earlier, if I could just remind everybody that the car park at the back of Riverside has 520 spaces in total, and whilst only 50 spaces are dedicated specifically to the hotel, obviously in terms of hours of usage, it's much more likely that hotel users will be using spaces later in the afternoon as they arrive and departing the following morning. Now, whilst there are only 50 dedicated spaces, the hotel customers are quite at liberty to use any of the other free spaces within the car park. And it's very unlikely that the car park would be at capacity into the afternoon. And so that will free up spaces for what we call duality of use throughout the day. So I think certainly in respect of the hotel, there shouldn't be any problem at all in respect of car parking spaces.
Thank you. I think those go holiday probably got the message. I've got Councillor Zaman and then Amna Mia, and that's it.
Yeah.
Amna Mia. It's not Councillor Zaman first.
Thank you, Chair. Richard, you heard Councillor saying that we do support the mixed development of the Townsend, but I think this such a huge development in the town centre, it doesn't represent the ratio of parking. So again, I think I still feel that there's not enough parking. Sometimes applicants, they put sporting letter that we'll park, we have got letter, from bingo, from other places, just to support the application. But those people who have their businesses in the area, they actually they will be using their parking. But I think we are saying that our customers are going to park their space is going to be free. It's practically, I think, it's going to be difficult. Later, after a few years, everybody is going to blame council to say that council did not look into properly when they approved this application, because it's going to put a lot of burden on the local businesses as well. And one of the other thing, I think I haven't seen any sort of consultation, is huge sort of development, and there are local stakeholders. I don't know whether developer has done any consultation or done a bit of research or liaise with, because I'm really wondering, I'm asking, I'll probably raise it with the planning officer to find out why don't we have any objector, and how many letters we have sent out for this development, because normally, we send out letters to people who are going to be affected with this development in the area. And I would like to know more about it, please.
Thank you, Councillor Zaman. Did you want to come on that, Richard?
Sorry, I can pick up the point on the consultation if that's helpful. As the officer, 3 site notices were put up around the perimeter of the site on 3 different points, and letters were sent around to the adjacent properties, and there was a notice put in the local press. At the time of writing the report, there's been no objection, and there's been actually 1 letter of support. So we have fulfilled our statutory duty in terms of consulting on the application, in terms of the planning process. But I don't know whether Richard wants to pick up in terms of any pre-application consultation that may have occurred.
Yeah, I mean, what I suppose I can add is that we have to remember we're sort of, for this application, we're at the back end of quite a long process to get here, including the previous hybrid application, and then a development framework that was consulted upon and adopted before then. And that actually had a very extensive consultation, which I'm sure some of you may well have been involved with. And it's quite true, you often find that you can get a bit of consultation fatigue within local communities. Plus, we have to remember that because of where we are in the town, there aren't actually that many people resident yet around that are being directly affected. That's one of the purposes of the application, is to bring people back into living in the town. So whilst it would be nice if we had more response perhaps to the consultation that formally went out with the application, it is what it is.
Okay, thank you. Before Councillor Amnamir and John Taylor, that's it. Amnamir.
Thank you, Chair. My question is, right, we are not just planning for single people to come to this hotel. Neither are we planning for just overnight stay, business stays. There will be families, right? There's no provision made, right, for, I didn't see any, for children who will be staying in it. It's dead right in the town center, but nothing for children to do. So is there going to be any green area for children? One. The other is, right, my concern for the car parking as well. We're planning for the future. We are saying, right, okay, let's do this now, right, and we'll think of it later, right, if we need more car park spaces. No, let's think about it now, right, and then do it right. Thank you.
Thank you. Richard, you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the sort of open space and landscape around development, what we have is the function of where we are. We are a town centre site, so we're not going to be able to provide park facilities and so forth. So what we have are two basically pieces of landscaping. One is the central public space, which is, it forms a variety of functions. It's a space for people to move through, going through from Yorkshire Street down to Riverside and back again as a route. It provides terraces where the hotel, the food and drink can spill out into and use the space. It provides an entrance to the apartment and the hotel and the office buildings. And it also provides some greenery and habitat value. So it's quite a hard-working piece of space in its own right. It's not targeted at children, no. It's not a play space. It is a piece of public realm. And then you have the private gardens within the apartment buildings, and that is a mix of relaxation spaces, a bit of landscaping, some seating areas. It gives access to places where the cycle parking is. And again, it isn't formally provided with any play areas. And it would be wrong to say that this is a development that is targeted at family housing. It's not that type of development. It's not the type of people who are likely to want to live in any great numbers in the town centre. And certainly not my experience of dealing with these kind of developments.
Thank you. I mean, before John, I've got a question as well, because I know you've done in Stoke, which is similar size of the Rochdale town, similar design, etc. Do you have any feedback from there? I know, I understand, and we'd like to know what type of people do you think going to use the hotel. I think that's we probably explain a bit more. Probably a member would understand what type of people do you expect the hotel to be used, business people or somebody just stopping who wants to have access to Manchester, who are going to use because it's going to be cheaper in Rochdale to live or something, or that's what I think that needs to, that sort of message that needs to be clear to the members. I think that's where the confusion coming up from.
Yeah, that's not a planning issue, that, to be honest.
Yeah, the parking addresses, isn't it? That the parking addresses.
Okay, I don't know whether you wanted to look at who be using the hotel. I think I will pass that to Mike to say who might be the prospective user of the hotel. He has more perhaps knowledge onto that.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. I mean, I think predominantly we're expecting it to be business travellers, but it will be a mix. And I think certainly there is overspill demand from the centre of Manchester, particularly with the improved transport links that we've got now with both the train and the metro. I think, from Rochdale's perspective, it is a huge step forward in the sense of attracting a brand like Hilton to the town centre. Richard touched on it earlier, but apart from Manchester City Centre, Manchester Airport and the Emirates Old Trafford Stadium, this will be the first town centre location in GM with the Hilton brand attached to it. And I think clearly Rochdale's leading the way. There is another proposal in Stockport, but I'm very hopeful that we'll be ahead of them in terms of delivery. And yeah, I think it's demonstrating that Rochdale's open for business, and that's what this is all about.
Thank you. I think Paul Moore want to come in before somebody else come in. Paul Moore.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just conscious there's an awful lot of questions about a sort of wide variety of issues, but the issue of car parking and how the deck car park works is clearly an issue of some concern. But I think what I'd say is we've covered this in the report in terms of the highway section and the paragraphs at paragraph 45 and 46 about the fact that we're satisfied the level of provision is acceptable for a development of this size. And I think you've also heard from the applicants about the management strategy that would be in place, and also about the timing of the use and how the uses would work together in terms of the provision coupled with that kind of management plan that's in place. So ultimately, I think the other factor here is in terms of the location, as has been pointed out, this is an absolutely critical project in terms of the wider regeneration and continued and ongoing regeneration of Rochdale Town Centre. And the site itself is one of the most accessible sites available, really. I mean, you've got the bus interchange on the doorstep of the site, you've got the Metrolink access for the site. So fundamentally, there's a whole host of public transport options and all the facilities that you would need on your doorstep, including all the retail facilities and banking and everything else, and obviously the council offices. So the site is hugely accessible and sustainable. And in those circumstances, our policies are quite clear that the level of provision for parking can be adjusted accordingly. So coupled with all the factors around management, and I think Mike Smith termed it sort of duality of use, that I really think that there's sufficient information there to demonstrate to members that the level of car parking would be sufficient for a development of this size, really. So I hope that puts some of these concerns at rest. I mean, the question about rents has obviously been asked as well, and as Richard has explained, the scheme here is very much about a market rent offer and an offer that is something that's quite different to the current housing market offer in Rochdale. And the type of housing offer that's being proposed is fundamental to the regeneration of the town centre by helping us as a borough to attract residents that might ordinarily not look to live in Rochdale and might look to places like Manchester city centre, for example. So it is aimed at a very specific kind of market to help with that ongoing regeneration, really, and broaden out the housing offer. And I think really this is, I can't stress enough, it's a key part of the overall long-standing regeneration aims for the borough. So I think there's enough there to sort of deal with the questions, and I hope that deals with any concerns about both parking and the type of accommodation and offer, really, and just clarifies that link with the overall and long-standing regeneration strategy for Rochdale. So I'm happy to take any more questions, Chair, if you like.
Okay. Let's move on the question, because otherwise we carry on going a circle around the same question. I've got John Taylor and Rachel and Peter Winkler, and that's it.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks very much. My question is nothing to do with parking at all. It's just the question I asked earlier of Richard, which understandably he couldn't answer. And I just wonder, and I genuinely hope if we go ahead with this scheme, it's a major success for us. If it isn't, what are the risks to us as a borough financially? Perhaps, Paul, you'd be best placed to answer that one. I don't know.
If I may, Chair, I don't think that's a question that is relevant to the determination of the application councillor. Would be a separate matter for the council as a whole, really, rather than the local planning authority. So.
Okay, it's fine.
That's fine.
Yeah, okay.
Right, Rachel, then Peter Winkler.
Thank you, Chair. I know there has been a focus on the car parking side, but I just want to say that I'm really pleased to see the 58 bicycle storage unit. That's an improvement I would certainly welcome. But just on the car parking part, could I ask, has the Hilton Group said that they feel that the parking is substantial for their guests or sufficient?
Yeah, Councillor, if I may answer that, it's Mike Smith again from Generate. Yes, absolutely. The number, the dedicated number, was actually driven by the negotiations with Hilton. So Hilton are entirely satisfied that dedicated number is sufficient for their needs. And as I said earlier, we also still have an additional 470 spaces, which will be free at various times. So they're perfectly happy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Peter Winkler.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to pick up on the point that you made, actually, Chair, about who the people are who will be using this. And I do think it is a really important planning matter, because as we go on as a town centre and we open up the town hall, which is going to be a venue for people coming, those are the people who will stay in this hotel. As we get the better links into Manchester and we potentially get congestion charging in Manchester, those are the people who will stay in the hotel. They will arrive in a car, they will arrive in a commercial vehicle, depending on what they're doing, and they will commute into Manchester from there. So I think it's really important that we understand properly who these people are. Are they reps? Are they traveling working people? If they're commuting from that hotel base into Manchester, they will leave their car in the hotel car park for 3, 4, 5 days at a time. They won't be moving it in and out of a day. I've done this myself in Birmingham when we've been to trade shows. You come in 4 cars, you leave 3 at the hotel, you take 1 to the venue. If you're at a wedding and you're in for 2 or 3 days, you're seeing family, you will commute around on the wonderful public transport that we've got, but your car will sit in the car park. So I think we do need to understand properly the demographic of people who are going to come into this hotel. This isn't a London hotel. It isn't a city centre hotel. It's an outskirts hotel, and the people who use that are very, very different.
You want to comment on that, Richard, or? No.
Just unmute yourself again. I'm not sure there's anything further I can add to that to help answer that question. I can't speak for Hilton and who they think they're going to come into the hotel and the users. I recognise it is going to be a mix of users, and I recognise the points being made that there are differences in how people go to hotels and use facilities in different towns and locations. But we just need to recognise the inherent sustainability of the location of the hotel in Rochdale Town Centre, and that in itself will be a driver, in no pun intended, of how people actually do come there and do want to stay either with or without a vehicle.
Okay, thank you very much, Richard, and Mike Smith. Right, it's open to discussion now. So, John Taylor, you want to comment? Okay.
Thanks very much, Chair. I actually really support this scheme. I think we need to be ambitious, and I think we need to look to the future. One thing that hasn't been mentioned is we have a Greater Manchester Transport Strategy, which says 50% of all of our journeys should be about using public transport by 2030, I think it is. If we want to make that a reality, we need to go with schemes like this. We've got the experts here telling us there aren't enough parking spaces. And when we look at the kind of market we're trying to attract, it's young, affluent, singles or couples, either staying in a hotel or staying in renting an apartment. That's the kind of income generation we need into the town. And we need everything else in the town to go with it. So they spend the money in Rochdale and don't travel into Manchester. I know people who are actually in the process of buying apartments in Manchester, and a parking space is £20,000, and they're all gone. They snapped up, and they still buy the apartments there. We will never be Manchester, but I think we can be better than what we are at the moment, and we do need schemes like this to get there. Thanks very much, Chair.
Thank you. Right, I've got Councillor Phil Burke, Councillor Wazir Shah, and I've got Councillor Samina comments.
Chair, I think this is a great opportunity and a really big Chair, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I think this is a great opportunity and a really big boost for the town centre economy. and Rochdale as a whole, not only will it create much needed jobs for the local people from across the borough, but we'll see a footfall increase with people coming to and from the town. It will really revitalise the town centre. It will put Rochdale firmly on the map with a brand new hotel and an opportunity for young people to come into the town and live how they want to live in town centre living. This will also encourage other businesses to come and invest in Rochdale, I feel. And we want people to come to Rochdale, visit Rochdale and stay in Rochdale overnight and spend their much earned cash in Rochdale itself instead of taking it away from the borough. We've got a great transport infrastructure already in place, the trains, the buses and the trams. People can get to and from wherever they need to and come to central Rochdale. In relation to the car parks, as a former manager of some of the hotels in central Manchester, if there's not enough car park spaces in the car park, speak to the people who own the car park and increase it. That's what we used to do in central Manchester. We had so many spaces what we allowed to use, and we just increase it. Is always a solution to the problem. I don't think the car parking will be an issue, to be honest, but they're just my views, Chair, and I fully support. And if need to be recommended, I'd like to propose this recommendation.
I'll second it.
So we've been proposed and second by. Before I take any votes, I'm going to have comments of others. Councillor Wazir Shah and Samina Zaid. Councillor Wazir Shah.
Thank you, Chair. I think we all wanted a regeneration of our town centre. It started a long time ago from sixth form, very successful story in whole of the country, not just in our borough. And now the town hall is going to be sort of regenerated. Town centre, we got new shopping centre, we got the cinema, we never had it before. And now this is like maybe a jewel in the crown that we have a upmarket apartment for young people. That is the trend emerging and it's happening. And we'll have a hotel for the businesses and all those who could sort of travel in and stay in. I think it's a good news for our town centre. It is good news for our business community as well. It was needed, as my two previous colleagues have said. I think we need to support this project. Car park is a concern, but we have 152. So my suggestion is that we will ensure that that is the minimum. Now, not just saying is the car park, will say that 152 car parks are minimum designated for this development, second phase of number 1 Riverside. So that is my suggestion, that we'd say we can add the word minimum of 152 car parks. So we are catering for the future. So we don't have sort of risk to fail the project. In fact, we have all the parameters in the right place to make it success today, tomorrow, and next decade. So can I just add the 152 car parks as a minimum requirement for this development? Thank you.
Councillor Samina Zaman and then Sit.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's going to be a success because our young people are more opting towards small apartments. Like recently in my ward, there were 6 apartments and they're just gone within days and taken up by young professionals. And I'm sure that it's going to benefit us, our town and our borough. And when we talk about car parking, and I think we are very quickly moving towards green traveling. And I think our young people are more into environmental friendly and we're using more public transport instead of the cars. And we are getting e-scooters in the town as well. They are in trial, and hopefully we won't have that much of car parking issues in the future. And we should be more positive about our young people and how they are going to use our facilities in future. So I fully support this project, and I hope and wish everybody best of luck with our new beautiful town centre.
Thank you, Councillor Samina. Councillor Zaman, that's it.
Chair, I just want to know whether ward councillors are they're aware of this application. Are they going to be attending or saying something about this application?
I'm sure they're aware of it because the application goes in the publish. They're aware of the township. So I don't think that's a question for anybody really, Councillor Zaman. So Sean, you want to do a last mark? Go on then.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I'm not a ward councillor for that area, but I am the chair of the township, which it is in. Fully support it. It's an absolutely brilliant scheme. If anything, there's over provision of parking. You go to all these towns that you mentioned, the parking's terrible. Go to Liverpool and try and get somewhere to park, costs you a fortune. London's the same. Most people on businesses go by train, public transport. We are well placed in that area, in between Manchester and Leeds. It's Hilton have done their research, I'll tell you, and I think it will be a fantastic success. There's a lot to see in Rochdale. The town hall, the pioneers, and the new museum that's opening. It'll be on a national scale. You'll be hard pressed to get a room, I should imagine.
Thank
Fully
you, Sean
support
Neil.
it.
Thank you. I'm sure the hotel will do research if it is. I mean, law member raised a parking issue, but I'm sure the hotel have research have done, and if they do come up parking problem, and I think they're able to address it, whether they have a contract. If you do go on holiday, not necessarily going to have a parking outside your hotel. You could have 2 miles away parking and still travel to the hotel. So let's have a vote. It's been proposed by Councillor Phil Burke. It's been seconded by John Taylor. Peter, can you take the roll call, please?
Councillor Burke.
Approve.
Councillor Emmett.
Approve.
Councillor Davidson.
Approve.
Councillor Massey.
Approve.
Councillor Meir.
Approve.
Councillor O'Neill.
Approve.
Councillor Rana.
Approve.
Councillor Rush.
Approved.
Councillor Taylor.
Approve.
Councillor Wazir.
Approve.
Councillor Winkler.
Approve.
Councillor Zahir.
Approve.
Councillor Zaman.
I would like to abstain, Chair.
Councillor Ahmed.
Abstain. So the recommendation has been approved. Okay, thank you very much. All right, next agenda item we're going on is agenda item 8. Anybody wants got any question on that or want to raise anything on that? Appeals. I hope you all read it.
We have, yeah.
That's okay. Agenda item 9 is notification of the following appeals have been lodged. One is Middleton Township and the other one Rochdale. So I hope you read it, and if you have a current concern, you can. I'm sure you can speak to officer.
Yes, we did.
So that's it for tonight. We've not done too bad. So good night.
Good night from me.
Good night. Thank you very much, Chair.